On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. I've got 3 new Q posts that are kind of interesting and certainly tie into what I'm going to start off with. I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out the William Barr hearing that they had the other day, but there's been a lot of snippets from it that are amazing. And I've got, looks like 6 or so tied up, 7 of them here. I got to watch a lot of it live, and it was just an S show. It was crazy. It was each person had a very limited amount of time and would not let William Barr answer questions. The accusations were made. It is out of control. There was a couple great places where some senators that were Republican were allowed to have the floor, and they were allowing William Barr to answer some of the questions that were being brought up prior. And his answers were fantastic. And there's also a couple places where William Barr really got to put it to them. And I'm going to share some examples of those. So we got some great stuff coming around there. And what's also sort of spinning around nowadays with Trump and with the tech companies. And they just had the tech CEOs, I think everyone except Bezos or Apple, one of the two didn't show up. It took forever. It was delayed. There was a lot of little ruckus around that. So again, a lot of very interesting stuff is happening. And the pace is picking up because, frankly, elections less than 100 days away. And now we're literally trying to get things transitioned. I say we, I meaning the left, basically, or the deep state, essentially, is trying to get control of this whole mechanism, this whole voting system, so they can attempt to try to take advantage of it. This is their last chance. This is their Hail Mary. And if they can't pull this off, and again, we've got a lot of things that are happening around COVID and around potential things we can take to make us better and prophylactics that'll keep us from getting sick, and all sorts of information's coming out. A lot of things are starting to come to the surface and people are starting to wake up. So just to give a good couple examples of some of the fun, this was A.G. Barr talking to Rep. Swalwell, and just the guy wouldn't let him answer questions. It was pretty cool how it played out. I mean, it's messed up, but...
President's friend.
Not that I recall, if you're talking...
Does that seem like something you'd recall, where you would...
Well, I'm saying I can't really remember my first... If you let me finish the question, I can't remember. 30 years ago, I was Attorney General.
As Attorney General now.
No, I didn't. But that's because issues come up to the Attorney General within a dispute. And I have never heard of a dispute. I've never heard of a dispute in the department where line prosecutors threatened to quit.
Well, it's a pretty big deal, and they
because of a discussion.
Barr, other than that.
So that was just a taste of how a lot of this was playing out. Again, no one would let the guy answer anything. Now, one of our favorites, I swear, this lady, and she was even correcting people when they were saying her name incorrectly. I think it's Jayapal or whatever. I don't care if I say it right or wrong, and she's certainly not listening to my show. She doesn't give a crap what I say. But, again, it's a great example of kind of the abuse that I feel that Barr was kind of subjugated to. And I think handled themselves reasonably well, considering this was an absolute waste of time. Again, I've got some golden nuggets towards the end of this little synopsis, so stick with me because this is awesome. But this one, yeah, this one's a gem.
Protesters and injure American citizens who were just simply exercising their First Amendment rights was appropriate?
Well, first, it's my understanding that no tear gas was used on Monday, June 1st.
Mr. Barr, that is a semantic distinction that has been proven false by many fact checkers.
How is it semantic?
Do you think...
How is it semantic? Tear gas is a particular compound.
You talked about chemical irritants, and it has been proven false by reports. So just answer the question. Do you think that it was appropriate at Lafayette Park to pepper spray, tear gas, and beat protesters and injure American citizens?
Well, I don't accept your characterization of what happened, but as I explained, the effort there was...
Mr. Barr, I just asked for a yes or no, so let me just tell you, I'm starting to lose my temper. According to sworn testimony before the House Natural Resources Committee by Army National Guard officer Adam DeMarco, who was there, this was, quote, an unprovoked escalation and excessive use of force against peaceful protesters.
Well, I don't
Numerous
remember,
media
I don't remember
reports
DeMarco as being...
Mr. Barr, excuse me, this is my
time.
Sir. Protesters and
the level of disrespect, the way they're saying, literally yelling at him for him just trying to answer a question, and apparently he didn't answer quick enough. She wants a yes or no, but again, they're wrapping all these crazy questions around all these presumptions and expecting him to just say yes, and he's like, no, that's bullshit, what you just said. Not going to do it. So again, That's how these things are playing out. Rep. Lucy McBath, she's got a nice little moment here with Barr as well, where it's just palpable how these things play out. But whatever, we'll see what you think.
I quote you directly, the entire ACA must fall.
I have 2 children who are cancer survivors, so I feel very strongly about this issue as a matter of policy. And I believe that the president's made clear that he will ensure that
Sir, please answer my question. Will you stop playing politics with Americans' health care in the middle of a pandemic?
I'm not playing politics. I'm the lawyer. I'm not in charge of health care policy.
Will you reverse your course and make sure that millions of Americans like me, that I quote,
there's nothing he can do in that case, right? He's just like, this isn't even my job. You're blaming me for stuff that's not my job. She's saying, I've heard you want to shut down the American Cancer Association. And he's like, 2 of my kids are cancer survivors. What? Like, what are you talking about? So again, putting things in his mouth and then getting pissed off that he's not just saying yes. I mean, first off, William Barr is way the hell smarter than that. But second off, they're asking crazy questions. There was one, and I don't have the tape of it. I wish I did. But they actually asked Barr, they said, isn't it true that Trump said that you could inject bleach into your skin and that would make you better? And he's like, that is not how the quote went. And they're like, oh, yes, it did. And it's like, no, he said you could inject disinfectant. I mean, he didn't clarify. But again, they were misquoting the original source. And then he's calling them out on it. And they're like, no. Oh, man, this was amazing to watch. So again, not to be outdone, Rep. Dean, I think just hits this one out of the park. I think literally she just walked up, pointed deep and just knocked it, and probably got COVID because everyone in baseball is getting COVID apparently right now. But anyways, we'll see what she has to say.
Describes pepper balls used on Americans in Lafayette Square. A 2009 Justice report noted that the pepper ball, quote, system's accuracy and accompanying blunt trauma impact made it an ideal chemical dispensing system. So while you, in a quote, said it's not chemical, you today confirm it is chemical, and you're aware of your department's policy, are you not?
What policy?
The one I've just provided to you.
What does it say? What's the policy?
Well, I showed it to you. Finally, whether or not you authorized it at the time, perhaps you weren't listening.
I didn't see the policy. What was the policy
Clearly
in
you weren't
there?
Listening. Fine. Whether or not you authorized the use of pepper balls. What? I did not ask you a question yet, sir. I ask you to please refrain from interrupting me.
So, and they're also, by the way, perfectly willing to waste their own time to chastise, lament, and yell at him. But that being said, the second he tries to answer anything, clarify anything at all, they just beat up on him. Again, just watching the way this played out, it was just like, are you freaking serious? Thank God there was at least a few Republicans that were on the House, which some are suggesting may change coming in this election. We'll see how that plays out. But this one was pretty awesome. This guy goes off on him, and there's a point where literally Barr puts his foot down and says, look, you're telling me, you're asking me a question, and in the case of perjury, how I'm answering matters. He's like, no, I'm going to answer the question. And he actually uses slightly stronger words. And it's pretty cool. This is a great moment where I really feel like Barr stepped up to the plate again and just said, look, this is BS. I know my rights. I know what you guys are doing. I'm being cool being here to answer these questions. You guys are being a bunch of jerkholes. But check out this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Attorney General. I want to go through a couple of your prior statements. On April 18th of 2019, you stated, quote, that the White House fully cooperated with the special counsel's investigation. You're aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
Today, yes or no, Mr. Barr, under the penalty of perjury, do you testify that that statement was true at the time you made it?
I thought it to be true at the time I made it. Why isn't it true?
June 9th, I'll get to that, Mr. Barr.
I mean, does it have
Mr.
to
Barr,
do with quibbling
I will get to that. Reclaiming my time, you answered the question.
Okay.
I have another question for you. On June 19th, of 2020.
Actually, I need to answer that question.
Mr. Attorney General, you did answer the question.
No, you said under penalty of perjury. I'm going to answer the damn question. Okay?
You said the answer was yes, is what you said.
Well,
are you saying no?
I think what I was referring to, and I'd have to see the context of it, was the supplying of documents.
No, Mr. Attorney General, this statement was not limited to the supply of documents. You stated at a press, Mr. Attorney General, reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time.
I think that's what I was talking about.
On April 19th of 2019 that the White House fully cooperated with the special counsel's investigation. You knew when you made that statement that the president had not agreed to be interviewed by the special counsel. Now, on June 18th of this year, Mr. Attorney General,
I was referring to
on June 18th,
production of documents.
Mr. Attorney General, on June 18th of this year, the Department of Justice issued a statement saying that Mr. Berman, a former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, had, quote, stepped down. You're aware of that statement being released by the department.
It's just unreal how they try to steamroll him on that. And then on top of that, his answer, in the context of his answer, his firsthand knowledge of what he said. And this guy's like, no, that's not what you meant. No, let me tell you what you meant. This is what you meant. It's like, wow. And so again, the whole concept, nobody would let him talk, even when it was something that he should legally talk about, or in the sense of perjury. Oh, are you kidding me? So anyways, we got some happy rays of sunshine to share. There's a couple really awesome moments that are awesome. So I'm glad you stuck with me at least this long. But one, and this was just a good example of how a few of these people were allowing him to speak, and this was super cool. And here is where he literally calls out the left, the leadership in the left, and asks, no, even dares them to actually say something bad about the violence that's actually occurring in our streets. And do they? Have they?
What makes me concerned for the country is this is the first time in my memory that the leaders of one of our great two political parties, the Democratic Party, are not coming out and condemning mob violence and the attack on federal courts. Why can't we just say, the violence against federal courts has to stop? Could we hear something like that?
Mr. Attorney General, I totally agree. I support what you're doing, and I support what President Trump is doing for law and order in our country, and I yield back.
And amen, by the way. I mean, just freaking amen. But here was this opportunity where she literally said, did you want to have a chance to actually answer that last little steamrolling that you just went through? And he's like, yeah. And he literally calls out the leadership on the left in a perfect way. And why haven't they? Why still haven't they come out and condemned the violence, condemned the vandalism, condemned the property destruction, condemn any of these things that are happening that are non-peaceful? I'm fully with the support of peaceful protests, and I really do think just about everybody is. They, on the left, or the deep state anyways, seem to be very fond of this violence. And I think in a lot of cases, they actually think this is going to be detrimental to Trump's presidency because it's happening on his watch. But as it's turning out, it's actually damaging the Democrats way worse. So this is probably one of the best places in the entire thing. And this is truly where Barr says to, Nadler, you're a real class act, Mr. Chairman. Seriously, this was frickin' awesome.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, could we take a 5-minute break?
Dean is recognized.
Could we take a 5-minute break, Mr. Chairman?
No.
That's a common courtesy,
Dean is
Mr. Chairman, of every witness.
I waited an hour for you this morning. I haven't had lunch. I'd like to take a 5-minute break.
Mr. Attorney General, we are almost finished. We're going to be finished in a few minutes. Otherwise, we can certainly take a break, but
You're real class act.
Okay.
Yeah.
After this, if you still want, we'll have a break.
No, he wants a break now.
You want it now?
And you just mentioned rudeness. I think we're seeing it on display. Let's let the Attorney General have a break.
Committee will stand and recess it now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Call a spade, man. That little doorknob is frickin' just stupid as hell. Nadler is just unreal. He's also the one, by the way, that says the whole Portland riots and the damage and destruction and the Antifa in Portland is just a myth. It's just a made-up thing in Washington, D.C. This guy is in charge of things. Anyway, now this is more of an ironic situation. Do I think it's okay that anybody That's not cool. There we go. Do I think it's okay that anybody ever experiences violence? No. Do I think it's okay that anybody, even if you're on the left, has horrible things happen to you? No, I don't think that's okay. But I do think part of the awakening process is going to be, for a lot of people on the left, things like this happening. Now, fortunately, his life was not lost. He was not harmed. And really, it doesn't sound like a lot of property damage was harmed in his personal possession, but stuff hit home and close to home, and it freaked him out. So we've got a Seattle radio host who was mocking Trump, has his apartment ransacked by rioters. Now here's where he's mocking them. This was the original tweet. Seattle mayor says about the anarchist takeover of the city, "It's a summer of love. These liberal Dems don't have a clue. The terrorists burn and pillage our cities, and they think it's just wonderful. Even the deaf must end this Seattle takeover now." And this guy, Paul Gallant, I guess is how you say that, walked through it last night out of curiosity and saw no burning, pillaging, or deaths. Chill, dog. Well, here he is. A little bit later, was July 25th versus June 12th, so a month and a half later, well, apparently his world's changed a little bit. Came home to my apartment complex, and the Starbucks underneath has been destroyed, and cops are telling us stay away in case something explosive's inside. I'm going to have to make coffee somewhere else. Oh, no. In Seattle, that's a bad thing, too, by the way. I don't know if you've ever spent time there. There's literally coffee shops in a center. There'll be a kiosk with a coffee shop, and then inside the grocery store in that same center, there's another coffee shop, just in case you finish it by the time you make it into the store. But again, all these people are upset that this is happening close to his home. Unrelated, there's a fire a few blocks from me, which had me freaked out when I saw it from the highway. Zero clue what's going on, but the cat and I are getting out. Freaking out with a stupid little cat, first off. No offense to cat lovers out there, but figures he's a cat lover. I'm just saying. Dogs are cool. I'm not saying, cats are okay. I've had twice in my life of really cool cats, but outside of that. Anyway, you guys might know this lady, Camarota Fumis, I don't know, CNN. She gets a little upset at this gentleman here because he didn't play the game right. He gave the wrong answer. And unlike Jeopardy, where you might lose the dollar amount, now this guy got to speak his part. But it's really cool what he says. Now, there's a cool little preface to this. Only about a minute long. This video shows that it's much longer. We're not playing the whole thing. But there's a fun little preface that I think leads into the way his answer is super appropriate. So let's give this a listen.
I don't think a lot of conservatives or Republicans know Joe Biden that well. He was the head of the Judiciary Committee when Clarence Thomas was confirmed for the Supreme Court. Of all of the Democrats that are running, Joe Biden is center of left more than anyone else.
So are you saying, Tommy, that you are getting comfortable with voting for Joe Biden?
Absolutely. I am, absolutely. He's a decent man. He's an honorable statesman. He has a life story.
We're talking about Joe Biden right now. Joe Biden is the same one who said he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle. We're talking about Joe Biden who said you can't go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. You're talking about Joe Biden who has a history of aligning himself with people like Robert Byrd, who was an actual former Grand Wizard of the KKK. So if you call him a decent man, that's actually a slap in the face to any minority thinking person.
What about there are good people on both sides at a KKK rally in Charlottesville? Why doesn't that one bother you as much?
When President Trump said that there were good people on both sides, what he meant by that is there are obviously going to be extremists on both sides of the aisle. Nothing is more evidence of that than what we've seen recently with far left people and far right people. I think my support for him is strengthened when he's willing to call out people like the rioters and protesters out with BLM right now. We're seeing right now is an opportunity that a lot of people are taking to exercise their displeasure with the results of the 2016 presidential election, and they did not let that go.
And these continue to be so... Now they just continue to talk a bunch of crap, and it's extended 2 minutes. I actually literally did watch the rest of it. I'm like, I don't think they said one more thing of substance, at least anyone in my audience, and not a whole lot in their audience. But needless to say, the guy is calling out some major points, and he's 100% right. And the other thing I think Trump also meant there's good people on both sides means on both sides of this equation, even on both of the crazy sides of this equation, there's still good people. Just because I'm a radical right or a radical left doesn't mean I necessarily am going to go out and cause violence, doesn't mean I'm necessarily hurting or harming people. I may have some crazy ideas that float around in my head, but I might be good to people in general, and I might not misbehave in general, right? And maybe I go to church all the time, right? Like, so there's a lot of people that are good that are in radical groups, but then most people are in the middle. And again, I think that's what they're speaking to, a lot of craziness. Now, something that popped up, and this was a big deal today, right before we get into our Q posts, the three of them that showed up today, which is, again, this ties into the story in a very interesting way, and I think I know what he's referring to, but we'll see if I can find it for you. In fact, I actually have to do this differently. But that being said, we got Facebook going into full anti-police shutdown, and it's truly what's going on right now. It's insane. They had all the tech people. So Facebook, I actually saw Zuckerberg was on the screen and talking. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I was literally working and doing other stuff that was important. But that being said, Facebook literally goes anti-police, shuts down a page for the largest Black Back the Blue rally. It's a rally that's supporting police officers, and they've shut this down. So again, we've got all sorts of top big tech companies that had to appear before Congress today, had a lot to answer to, and I believe some of them just straight up didn't show, one or two of them anyways. But President Trump in the morning, and he did this, I feel like he did this kind of as a little bit of a nudge to Congress, maybe even to frustrate them so they don't do something. I don't know, it's hard to say sometimes what he's intending to do, but you can tell it's going to make people upset, whatever the case is. President Trump threatened an executive order to bring fairness to big tech, says the Congress and government should have fixed this long ago. This has been a problem for a long time. This should have been addressed already. And if Congress isn't going to take care of this, if you guys aren't going to handle this, he goes, I'll take care of it through a tweet, or not through a tweet, but through an executive order. That's the same thing pretty much. But again, Trump's kind of trying to jump in front of this. And you know this is leading up to the election, which is going to lead up to the censorship that happens prior. And I think they're just getting the ball rolling a little bit early. It's one thing I was thinking about today is and this is kind of an aside, but I feel like maybe they're pushing the timeline ahead a little faster for the deep state right now. And because of that, it's actually throwing some of their timings out of sync. And it's really messing things up because they're bringing a lot of information around COVID and possible cures and all these things. They're bringing a lot of stuff's coming out in very profound ways. And again, it's causing some ripples for the deep state. Now, 3 posts came out. We left off at 46:14, I believe. Yes, there's 46. I'm sorry, we left off at 46:13. This one's a 10-minute video, YouTube, supposedly. Well, it's a YouTube link. I know that much. But when you go there, guess what? YouTube doesn't want you to see that. So I do think I know what it is. So let's see if I'll take a little gander here. And I cannot and will not play it. I just don't want anyone to get excited. Ooh, he's going to play it. No, because they'll ban my video immediately. Jim Jordan, you want to go to his Twitter page, okay? Just trying to help you find it. And down in here, I want to say it is right about here, 8:41. Now, this was a 10-minute video. I've seen a 10-minute version of this video somewhere, and it might have been one they made on YouTube and then linked it on Twitter because I don't see the 10-minute version anymore. But if you watch this 8-minute and 29-second video or whatever it is, you will actually see the video that he opened with, and it was very powerful. And the deep state does not like it. And even at the end of it, Nadler kind of gave him crap. He's like, you give me a hard time about a long intro. And he had like an 8-minute intro. But it is an extremely powerful video. It's one that's being banned and will probably be banned on Twitter. So I recommend you go to Jim Jordan's page, twitter.com/Jim_Jordan, and you can try to find it very easily. Just suggesting, but I'm pretty sure that's what got taken down. I almost said tooken down, and I'm quite sure that's not a word. 46:15, information warfare Q, and of course, I feel like that was probably made right after this, right? 11:07:55, then 11:10:50, right? Like 2 minutes later, follows up with information warfare. We got to share this with people, and then nothing can stop what's coming. Nothing. Where we go one, we go all. This was 11:11, so this was even a minute later, right? So in a short period of time, we have this spaz of Q posts, and again, I feel like there's a lot of Trump got a hold of the Q machine, and just like a lot of these kind of feel like he's more behind him, or at least telling someone, hey, put this out there. That being said, Q's very quiet, and for this to be the stuff that people are actually seeing, or these kind of forced posts, I think it's just trying to keep stuff in front of us. But I think for the most part, and this is to all of us, I think we're managing to keep the right information talked about and flowing. I think Q's kind of started a movement, and he just needs to nudge it in certain directions every once in a while. Again, all this stuff's playing out in a very beautiful way. But a lot is changing. A lot of people are having to stand their ground, and a lot of us are kind of having to learn to play in this new playground. But we're all figuring it out. Remember, where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan Radio Style.